You mentioned your religion. What religion exactly do you represent?
I'm a Santo. I do Palo. I'm a Santo.
What's that mean exactly?
Like, all that sacrificing goats and all that. That's not just for like. That's real life. You
sacrificed a goat.
You seen that, bro? That's real life, bro.
Really?
I sacrifice goats, chickens, mice. Like I do for certain though. Like I'm not allowed to explain it how you want me to explain it. I think how you want me to explain it, but yeah.
Well, I can do my research. That's interesting.
It ain't even gonna. You're not even gonna find it like
it's hard
that.
to Google.
You could Google it, but it ain't gonna explain. It's like it's. You could try to do research though, and let me know what you find out though, bro.
You mentioned.
All right. So we're gonna do our research too. Welcome everyone. So is Skrilla satanic music industry? We're gonna dive into it. So I know people tend to talk about celebrities and politicians like they're not even people, like they're quick to throw shade on somebody and just ridicule them and all this. The way I try to approach all these videos is like I want to talk about people as if I would talk to them if they were in front of my face. I really try to do things that way. So I took some time to get familiar with Skrilla, to like music, the interviews, seeing the guy, like listening to him talk, and actually watching him to form an opinion. That's not just first impressions. Because what usually happens is people are going to read a few sentences, or they're going to catch a headline. Then they're going to hear someone else or a social media post, hear how somebody else talks about that person, and then get that information from a second source, and then they think that they know the topic. That happens to us a lot. So with this, the question we're investigating is Skrilla a Satanist? Skrilla, of course, is the 6'7" rapper. Is he an occult practitioner? And most importantly, the real thing about Satanism is he advancing a greater agenda to poison and corrupt the youth? So now that I've said that, that means I'm not going to show and prove that greater agenda exists. Like, I've got 161 episodes of talking about that. This is episode 162. So what I do here on this podcast is, for the few who manage to find it, I want to explain what goes on behind the scenes in this world, and big picture how the shit actually works. Okay, so that means it doesn't mean I have some crazy insider knowledge. And that's the crazy thing about it, is it's 2026, and if you got a computer and you know where to look, all this stuff has already been exposed. The web of power behind governments, the music industry, and what goes on, even the satanic rituals, even the real bad ones, the stuff that gets your video taken off of YouTube. There are living witnesses who have been there, who have talked about them. You just have to find them and discern for yourself who is telling the truth and who isn't, because you're going to see a lot of garbage out there and things that aren't true, right, that people fall for. So when we talk about the satanic music industry, what is it really? What are we talking about? So Satanism in the music business, more people know about this today than at any other time before in history. And I know we got plenty of Twitter historians and social media scholars out there who know about everything, I know. But I hope we all remember, I definitely remember, that it wasn't until like the mid-2000s, and it was YouTube videos that were pointing out Rihanna and Jay-Z, their hand signs. Of course, Jay-Z was doing this. Who else? Beyonce and Lady Gaga, especially at the time. And people were pointing out the hand signs, the blood in the videos, all of this dark stuff, the occult iconography. That's where it really all started. I hope we remember that. The modern version of it, at least, because history repeats itself. So Satanism in the music industry goes long before. I don't think most people know that John Todd, back in the 70s, he talked about demonic influence in rock and roll music, because back then rock and roll music was the thing at the time. Of course, today it's hip-hop music. John Todd is a whole nother story, though, that I won't get into. I haven't even begun to investigate the whole thing, so I don't even know. But also, I don't think that people know that John Coleman, back in 1991, he wrote about the Tavistock Institute and wrote about them commissioning the Beatles to demoralize the youth, and they wrote all the Beatles songs to get the people, that whole hippie generation, to undermine the family unit, right? That's older. So we're talking about a new version of what's really like over 30-year-old research. But the point remains the same. We're talking about top musicians, and not just musicians, but the executives, being Luciferians and being dark occultists. And things like, to get into the network, there are certain things you have to do. You have to make sacrifices. We've talked about former people in Hollywood talking about this, so that there's a vow of secrecy, right? And essentially, what they're doing, the whole point to do it is to program and influence the masses. Well, that brings us to the 6-7 meme, right? And what better example of programming the masses with something, right? But there's a layer of separation there between Skrilla and the 6-7 trend, with the hand motion. He didn't come up with that. He came up with the song Doot Doot 6-7, this song that was used in basketball edits for a while. It took a long time. I didn't know it at the time. I must be getting older, right? I'm 29. So anyway, there were all these edits of people playing sports. They would, like LaMelo Ball and stuff. And then that inspired the trend. But that's not the trend itself, right? So there's a layer of separation there. That being said, Skrilla is not your average rapper, right? He is dark. The song itself is dark. The video is dark. His whole music, his whole vibe overall, right? So that's nothing new to me, though. I'm from Chicago. I was 16 when Chief Keef came out with his music. I grew up on the whole drill thing. The drill style, of course, led to a lot of demonic music coming from this city, music that I still love to this day. And before we even get into that, and I will get into it, I want to point out that there's a difference between having elements of death and immorality in your music. That's one thing. The music itself being part of a concerted effort to promote death and immorality, to promote it and get the people doing that, that's a whole other thing. So with Skrilla, we're trying to see if it's the first or the second. Now, before I ever heard about the animal sacrifice thing, which is what we just saw to begin the video, it wasn't until I didn't even see that, but I saw South Park pick up the 6-7 thing. That's when I found out about it, really. So let's watch this right now. I'm gonna switch to South Park, and hopefully they don't take my thing down, because nobody wants to let you even get a little bit of a word out when you're using copyright and stuff. So anyway, here we go. I got this thing muted. I'm working with like 3 screens. Okay, let's go.
I'm here to talk to you about the Antichrist. Okay, so first, what is the Antichrist? The Antichrist is a newer, more human form of Satan that will soon walk the earth. We don't know how soon it will walk the earth, but it could be within the next 6 to 7 weeks. Okay. You see, Satan was a fallen angel, and God punished him. And to make sure Satan could never have offspring, the Lord God did shrink Satan's asshole to the size of a...
Classic South Park, right? We get into that. I never liked their crude ass form of humor, but I didn't catch it in time. Whatever. So, I mean, South Park is hilarious, though, right? Anyway, this was from episode 333, titled "Twisted Christian." Came out October 15th. So, South Park picking up a trend is nothing new. They do that all the time. I don't usually spend too much time paying attention to these shows like The Simpsons and South Park, although there have been many observations that they've made, or there have been predictions. People have seen that they talk about something and then it ends up actually happening in life. So South Park, though, says 6-7 a satanic big deal, right? Like, what's that supposed to mean? The crazy thing is I was already paying attention to South Park at the time, because 2 episodes before this, episode 332 was called "Walk is Dead." I'm gonna show you this stuff, actually. Let me switch to the window. We'll close this. Jesus Christ. Alright, here we go. Twisted Christian. 333. That's what we just looked at, right? So this was season 28. Now, when I was paying attention to this was right about this time. because this episode came out September 3rd, and of course September 10th is when Charlie Kirk was shot in his artery on video, shot in his neck. That was a week after that episode came out, and I made this episode then. I made one of my episodes talking about this and these connections, because I do talk about occult symbolism sometimes, and I pointed out a few things like wok, of course, the Chinese restaurant, right? Wok in gematria is 49, and it's the same as, I got my keyboard over here, and it's the same as Kirk, right? So it's and here it shows you, you guys are familiar with gematria, what we're talking about here. Same number, 49. It's known that in gematria, words that have the same gematria value can be interchangeable as far as their meaning, right? So you think about the title, Wok is dead, Kirk is dead. It's the same thing. Now, I often hesitate to talk about gematria and stuff like this because I like talking about what I could prove 100%, like what I actually know is the truth. And just because you can find crazy connections about things, just because two words add up to the same thing doesn't mean that you can prove that a group did something or that this stuff is anything more than coincidence. But on the other hand, I don't need to prove causality here. I'm just showing correlation. That's it. Even if the South Park writers had no knowledge of Charlie Kirk's death, if there's no Satanism in the music industry, if I can show you that in real time cultural narratives are getting played out in front of our eyes for everyone to see, and then there are all of these little layers of symbolism that tie in with each other, then that shows you that these narratives and these principles, they're real and impactful. There's something going on there. And it's not only that it's the number 49. 4 plus 9 is 13. 13 is the superstitious number. Jesus and the 12 disciples making 13, or the 12 tribes of Israel coming together, right, when the Messiah returns. Of course, among the priest class and Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, it's not that they believe in the Messiah. They don't believe in the Messiah. They believe in building the Messiah. And that's why the Egyptian pyramid on the dollar bill, not this one, this one. That's why they got they've got 13 letters in Inuit Coeptus. But the point is they got an unfinished pyramid. Why do they have an unfinished pyramid? This is what they're building. This is not what they believe in, the Eye of Providence. They're building it. This is why it's separate from the rest of the world. That's the meaning of this symbol, right? It doesn't have a capstone because they're building God. This is called the Great Seal, is what it is. They're building it with their technocratic global system. That's what these people believe that we're talking about. And I don't mean just the Jewish mysticists. This is called the ancient religion. This is Satanism in the music industry. When you're talking about it, you're not just talking about people doing weird shit and rituals. You're talking about a network of people that traces their power to hereditary lineage throughout history, and these people have the money and have the power, and they believe in building a global system and building something that is separate from the rest of the world, right? That's the whole point. Building the Solomon's temple, building the capstone on the pyramid. You're talking about powerful people who are choosing the direction of human society. Of course, 6 plus 7 is also 13, right? So I could talk actually for so long about the number 13. It's 1 out of 3. So you see the triangle with the eye, it's bringing the trivium or the trinity into a singularity. In other words, it's squaring the circle, as is known as in Freemasonry, right? You have the square, and the whole mathematical alchemical problem is to square the circle, right? These two concepts about the two metaphysical parts of the world, the world, you could say the physical world and the spiritual world, and all this. That's why 13 is known to us, to normal people, as an unlucky number. It's a superstitious number. That's also why the Satanists and occultists use it, because it's taboo. That's why they choose Satanism, because it has nothing to do with worshiping Satan as much as embodying everything that is the opposite of conventional morality, right? Inverting, that everything is always inverted with these systems. So that's the point. But most of all, they use it because it's taboo, because it represents hidden knowledge. So by making the magic and the secrets of the universe to be taboo, you're keeping that power of that knowledge all to yourself and keeping it away from the masses, right? That being said, I do know that there's truth to the 13 being unlucky. Like that, me personally, in 2020, I crashed my car on October 13th. I flipped it, and then 13 days later, I crashed another one. That was October 26th. Anyway, that's what ended up making me stop doing drugs and just drinking and partying all the time and throwing my life away. You know, and the crazy thing is, the year before that, 2019. A guy crashed into me that time, and I had broken ribs, collapsed lung, lacerated liver, my spleen ruptured. I also got my elbow broken too, but that was nothing. So they happened to save my life that night, but it was a close one, and that was March 1st. That was 3/1, first day of the third month. Anyway, I got more 13s on the other side of the dollar bill with this, right? Of course, I know there was 13 colonies, so it's supposed to represent the 13 colonies, right? That's the official reason, which, it's just another thing to add. But you see, 13 leaves if you count them, 13 arrows, of course, 13 stars. So there's a logical explanation for why you have all these 13s on the dollar bill, but think about it, this country that actually has this Egyptian pyramid on it, and it has the all-seeing eye. There's a reason these things work out that way. So anyway, let's get back to South Park and these episodes. Because 2 episodes before that Walk is Dead episode, right, which I'm tying into to Charlie Kirk's death, is this Got a Nut episode 330. And that episode, they were actually making fun of Charlie Kirk on that episode. They had Cartman as Charlie Kirk, and he was trying to go around debating people all the time, right? That only comes out August 6th, so like a month before. And then a month later, the dude gets killed while he's debating people, just like in the episode. So there was a story about that. They had to pull the episode from Comedy Central or Netflix or whatever because, it's like right after the guy gets assassinated in front of the whole world. Like, it's distasteful that they were making fun of him, so they took it down. And that the title of that episode 330, was Got a Nut. Now, of course, the word nut is used not only to mean a religious extremist, like a nutcase, but also for lone gunman assassins. That's often said, like lone nut is the guy that commits, the assassination or the terrorist act. Another thing about 6-7 is it's another way to say 33, because 2/3 is 66.6, so 1/3 is 33.3. I didn't make that shit up. It's in the Bible, right? That symbolism. That didn't come from YouTube in the early 2000s. The 1/3 that's going to be saved and the 2/3 will perish, that's from the Bible. So, South Park finished that season, you see right here, right after 333. 330 was a Charlie Kirk episode. They finish it at 333. And 1000 minus 333 is 667. And then this first one that we're talking about with 6-7, that's 666 if you add it to 333 is 1000. So, you're getting to this 1/3, 2/3 point with the percentages. Interesting thing is, and I talked about this at the time, is that they unexpectedly ended that season. Nobody knew it was the end of season 27. And then they ended it. Of course, the joke was that they ended it because if not, then there would be episodes 6 and 7. So they ended the season to not have 6-7, right? Because it's become such a trend, right? It's become so used so much that they're avoiding it, which could mean nothing, right? But the thing that I saw at the time is that the start of the season got either delayed or moved up by 2 weeks. I know that there was an article about it way before all this stuff went down, that the season's moving. I know that it was moved in time, which that is a real world thing you can point to and ask, are they trying to make something align, right? And anyway, that episode 1, Twisted Christian 334, is when they talked about satanic numerology. So does that prove that satanic numerology is a real and powerful thing? No, it doesn't. It could just be synchronicity in the code of the universe. It could be South Park intentionally making fun of people like me and people who do shit like this. It doesn't matter. What matters is people like Peter Thiel over here, they're actually building the technocratic system. I already clicked off the tab. Who they had talking about 6-7, and they had real pictures of him. That's Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is the founder of Palantir. He's a Bilderberg member. He's one of the top 100 richest people in the world. He has government contracts for mass surveillance. He's married to a man who was the vice president at BlackRock. Palantir in itself has government contracts, and not just any old government contracts. Like, they're supplying Israel and the United States with like the AI systems for facial recognition that they're using today. The flock cameras and all that stuff. That's all that. Palantir's front line. They're ahead of that. And then his husband is was BlackRock's vice president. For those that don't know, BlackRock they own 12.4 trillion in assets. So it's the world's largest asset manager. So, which means like they have the resources that they can move shit around enough to change the direction and the politics and the course for entire countries. These people run shit, in other words. And then South Park has him talking about the Antichrist, These people are building the Antichrist Messiah, which is AI, surveillance, total control of every detail of human behavior down to the single cell in your body. These are the people that are prominent and powerful in, like, you can actually look them up: Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and you got Peter Thiel talking about this stuff, and we're talking about Skrilla. We talking about Skrilla, like not the game, not Palantir and BlackRock directing the course of the future, not real Satanists that meet at Bilderberg and they talk at Bilderberg in the United Nations about where they're going to take the world. We're talking about 6-7. We talking about Skrilla. So let's actually talk about him then, right? Like, I'm not just going to clickbait you into all of this analysis and symbolism, right? Let's close some of this stuff, and let's go into Skrilla again. Actually, I'll show you this before we get to it. I want you to see this.
Yeah, it is. Carried around. You always see shit like this. Nothing says flesh.
Yo, bro, yo. Why is he about to wait right back up? Right. You breathing?
There you go.
He good. Hey, yo, I hit you too. I hit you with that knife, yeah? What got you? So that's a regular shot. Hey, yo, wake up, though, bro.
So this is this guy saving a guy from a drug overdose, administering Narcan, and from the video you could tell that he's done this before. It doesn't look like it's a big deal to really anybody in the video. This guy is from Kensington, Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So we all know that as the land of the zombies, all of the junkies, and Skrilla is known for he sells drugs to these people, and but he's among them, right? I don't know if he's doing that right now, if he's trapping like that, but probably not, right? He's probably just making music. But he's known to hang around, and those are his people. It's not just like a gimmick he does. And the reason I show you that is just to kind of humanize who we're talking about. And as I just seen him move around at the interview with Adam 22 and the music a little bit, seeing how he talks, you know, like, spoiler alert, I think he's harmless, man. Like, this guy is harmless. He doesn't seem like a bad guy. He doesn't seem like he's doing this shit for anything. Like, he doesn't seem like he's taking orders from somebody. It seems like he's doing what he wants to do. But, you know, we're not gonna leave it there. We're gonna talk about his religion. We're gonna get into that animal sacrifice, right? So as he said with Adam 22, he's a santo. He does palo, right?
I'm a santo. I do palo. I'm a santo.
What's that mean exactly?
So what is that? You know, I'm not the first person to ask him. I found this later with Brandon Buckingham. He went out to meet with him and asked some more about it.
So a lot of people on the internet, they think that you're a Satanist, right? People are like, oh my God, he does sacrifices, he's a Satanist.
Yeah.
That's not true though. What's the reality of it, right? You don't have to say what you are, but are you a Satanist?
Yeah, no, I'm a santo. I'm a palero. That's how they look at it though, because it's different. But like, cause they not used to. You know what I'm saying? No,
But you don't worship Satan.
Fuck no, though.
So a lot of people on the internet, they think that you're a Satanist, right? People are like, oh my God, he does sacrifices, he's a Satanist.
Okay, so, like, long story short, the tradition he's talking about is a variation of Santeria, right? Which is like, a long story short, it's voodoo, right? Like, I know it's not voodoo, right? I have respect for these traditions, but they're basically remnants of African spiritual traditions that are like ancestor worship, and the palo is actually a stick, right? The palo is like this. It's kind of like the magic wand that you see on the tarot card, but it's not that. It's, you know, to a complete outsider, like, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about getting some objects, putting it together, like focusing intention on it, and then this is what, you know, in voodoo it's like a voodoo doll, and not that I'm saying that that's what they do, but basically this is they're variations of ancestor worship, the orichas, right? These are these spirits, and different, and they of course have animal sacrifice as part of this. So, you know, long story short, that's what it is. They have this, they put things together like hair, and sometimes like a bone and stuff like this, and you have the nganga, and you know, you basically can use it like a voodoo doll to like make good or bad things happen to people. So it is a bit of a dark tradition, of course, right? Obviously, but as I've said, and I'll repeat it, you know, I got respect for these traditions. Why? Because knowledge is power, and with this repeating history of war and invasion, you got these people who are living in Haiti, who are living in Cuba, right, in Latin America, with all this stuff going on. And in the last several hundred years, it just happened to be done under the Christian religion. Not that I'm, you know, blaming religion for actual actions of a person, right, whether it's war, colonialism, all of that, but it was done under the Christian banner, the Abrahamic traditions. So Santeria, palo, voodoo, it represents one of the only weapons that the enslaved and occupied people had left. So, you know, it's however you feel about ancestral spirits and all of that, this to me represents these hot ashes under the surface that contain the potential for the fire of liberty. Of course, you had the Haitian Revolution in 1791, just a few years after the American Revolution. I talked about that. I'm you know, truthfully, I'm very sympathetic to that, to things like this. Now, does that mean I endorse this? Am I going to be doing any rituals with the Nganga to work with the spirits? Hell no. But let me say this: I have a lot of respect for the Christian tradition as well, but animal sacrifice and human human sacrifice, I mean, that's in the Old Testament. Animals, of course, for the feast, but very early in the Old Testament, Abraham made the decision fully to sacrifice his son, and it was only God who stopped him, right? He would have killed him otherwise. That was clearly the point. And it's not even me making moral judgments right now. I'm just pointing out the facts. Like, all our religions have enslavement and human, down to human sacrifice. I'm not going to say all our religion, right? Because we're not talking about Buddhism and Hinduism, but the Abrahamic faiths are like this, right? And you talk about the saints in Catholicism as well, right? So how is that different from the Orishas, right? But many people would say, okay, yeah, just because though it was there in the Old Testament and Abraham did that, it doesn't mean that we follow everything that every person did back then in the text, that things have changed, and it doesn't mean that, you know, that you can point out these little details and say that I do that, right? That's the same thing Muslims would say when people point out in the Quran that Muhammad, I don't know when he married his wife, but it was like, is it 4, 6, 9? Either way, it's too young, you know. So people say, hey, that doesn't mean that I do that. To which I say, cool. So you're a reformer, you're a reformist. I agree. So am I. I'm an anarchist who believes in self-rule through personal accountability for all human beings, in the American revolutionary tradition under natural law. Like, that's me. That doesn't mean that I would own a slave just because Thomas Jefferson or some of those people from the Revolutionary War who wrote the Declaration of Independence owned slaves. Just because they did doesn't mean I'll do it. I'm trying to do better than them. So I actually think that's good. I actually think it's good for people to not separate completely from identifying with the tradition just because they don't subscribe to every little part of that tradition once they come into knowledge of moral principles. So I support these few people who are like, yeah, I'm Jewish because my whole family is Jewish, but hell no, I don't support that crazy shit the rabbis do with circumcising the boys like that and what they do. They say hell no. So, you know, I support that. Or a person like my dad who is hardcore Catholic. Shout out my dad, but he's not going to support invading or killing people in another nation no matter what any priest says, no matter what any book says. He's going to follow the moral principles of life on the authority of his personal relationship with Christ. Now, you can tell him he's wrong and someone else is right and he's doing the wrong thing. You go ahead and do that if that's what you think, you know. So I embrace that label even. You know, you can call me a Christian then. You want to say I'm not a real Christian because I don't go to church and I don't care about the Pope or the doctrines of the church. Go ahead, you could say that. Jesus wouldn't follow none of this shit either. But I want to tie all of this together. It's going to be a short show. I'm surprised. Usually I do this for like an hour and a half. This show, that truthfully is not all that much about Skrilla or what he had for breakfast, or if somebody's given him orders, or he's given the South Park writers orders and directives to program the masses. Because the way it's really done is, it's very rarely the artist that knows about all this stuff. Likely, you know, in the music industry, they have a guy close to them, like his brother or his guy that brought him in the music industry that he doesn't even know, and is involved with all this stuff, and that will be the person at the meetings, and he knows somebody, and you know, that's the more practical, easier way to manipulate people than to even initiate all of them into the traditions. But anyway, that's not what this show is about. This show is about principles. And not just moral principles, but universal principles. Because my main message is moral principles hold up to scientific scrutiny. You can, like, what I'm talking about is not my religion. It's not my belief system. This stuff is actually true. So that's why I can come up in front of you and show you all of these numbers and tell you that Peter Thiel is part of the ancient religion building the technocratic, antichrist system, because it's provable, it's observable throughout history that this is the direction that things are going, and that's wrong. It's wrong to do mass surveillance and enslave the people. It's wrong to cheat them into what you think is evolution. You know, I know it's wrong to rob and cheat somebody. And it's not because any book or voice in the sky told me. But first of all, I know it because I've been robbed and cheated before. That's the first thing, is recognizing relations, you know, and the effects of behaviors. Also because you can historically see what it leads to. You can see what happens with cultures and nations when they go into these practices that go into disrespecting each other's property, not having respect for life, for the integrity of business transactions. And you can see it everywhere, across the board through nature. You see the world heading in the same direction. That if you take away freedom and if you take away individual rights, you're going to take away life. Everything from your physiology to culture to law to nature, everything is telling you that's not the way to live. These are principles, basic principles. So here are some basic principles in no particular order, right? One, I just wrote this down right before coming on, you know. Knowledge and goals are achievable. It's worth it to strive for better things. Life is worth living, man. Like, it doesn't matter how many people watch this video. It's rewarding to be good at what you do. It's the right thing to do. It actually pays off to be professional and to be respectable and actually put care into what you're doing. You know, it doesn't matter what the results are. The shit matters. Number two, knowledge is power and intelligence is pattern recognition. It's all about pattern recognition. You actually can know what's going on in the world because motherfuckers like Peter Thiel and Larry Ellison, they actually tell you. They tell you what they think about life, what they think about you. They're out there writing the books. They're out there in the interviews. You just got to go listen to them. They say the craziest shit with a calm look on their face. And principle three, you become like the people that you hang around. You're shaped by the things that you pay attention to and spend your time doing. This is all stuff you've heard before. So like there are no new answers. There's no new magic that I put you onto. It's just knowing how to tie it together, like knowing how things are related. Like you look at the car, you have a functioning engine. It's like, do you get why the air intake is connected to this? Do you get what the coolant does? And then this goes into that. The oil lubricates the car. You got the combustion engine, you know, they're firing. Like, that's what it's all about. We've all seen the engine. We all know what the universe is. It's just like, look under the hood. Know how it comes together. And know why, you know? Like, don't just do Formula 500, what's it called? Formula 1 or Indy 500. Driving around in a circle. Like, the car is there for us to go somewhere. And there's a style to it. There's a style to driving. There's a rhythm and a purpose to it, you know? The universe is a beautiful construct. It's a beautiful, not construct. It's a beautiful medium, actually. There are infinite constructs in this medium that can be made, all held together by natural law. But anyway, like, you don't have to spend your time thinking and wondering and guessing about what's going on in the world. You can actually just look for it. You look for the right people, or even if you start in the wrong places, like I did in life, right? I look for my role models in rap music. And then I looked for the wrong ones, even though I heard Tupac and KRS-One. Maybe, you know, it's not even right to say that Tupac is a good example, but definitely KRS-One is, and the golden era guys. But I went to the other direction, right? I went into trying to be like a street dude, and I went into that, and I went into the drugs and all this stuff, and you know that was the wrong place to look. But you still find answers there. Because you see what that leads to. You see what kind of people you hang around, and you see the way what your life is showing. You look in the mirror, right? Your life is a mirror, and it's showing back to you, like, what are you actually doing? And then, you know, it was fun for a while, for a long while, and then I changed because I don't want to be around those kind of people. Now I'm around different people. And all this time, behind the scenes, I'm trying to learn. I'm learning about these things, and that pointed me to the right path. It was just my curiosity, my thirst for truth, right? So when you get around people like that, when you get around authors like that and researchers and content creators, people that stand the test of time, they're going to point you to more of those kind of people. It like the kind of work that holds up to scrutiny and proves to be true over time. Like this book that I'm going to leave you with, right? This is the end of the show. Let me just switch my screen. Thank you for checking me out. This one was a little bit late, right? Today is January 12th. I've gotten to even doing some shows on Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, it's just the way it is. Hey, look at this book, Conspirators' Hierarchy, the story of the Committee of 300. You might have heard about the Committee of 300. This is from Dr. John Coleman, who I mentioned. He's the one who wrote about the Tavistock Institute and them programming the Beatles, right? The original satanic music group, right? I say it jokingly, of course, because it goes without saying, I haven't even said this, but when we talk about Satanism or the occult network, we're not talking about rituals like Santo. We're talking about a tradition of holding wealth and power and building the unfinished pyramid, the pyramid of enslavement. So anyway, this is the book from 1991 where he writes about that, and I want to leave you with, this is one of these things that stands up to the test of time. I haven't actually read this whole thing, but I just, seen some of the topics, right? I know that I'm like, wow, this was all in one place in 1991. That is extraordinary. And I got one specifically highlighted, this one right here. This is where they talk about the music, right? So in this episode, to tie it all together about satanic music industry, this is the final word on it for me. To weaken the moral fiber of the nation and to demoralize workers in the labor class by creating mass unemployment. As jobs dwindle due to post-industrial zero-growth policies introduced by the Club of Rome, demoralized and discouraged workers will resort to alcohol and drugs. The youth of the land will be encouraged by means of rock music and drugs to rebel against the status quo, thus undermining and eventually destroying the family unit. In this regard, the Committee of 300 commissioned Tavistock Institute to prepare a blueprint as to how this should be achieved. Tavistock directed Stanford Research to undertake the work under the direction of Professor Willis Harman. This work later became known as the Aquarian Conspiracy. So, that was 1991, right? Things have changed over time. What's happened over time? I don't know. What has it been? 35 years. Wow, 34 years. That was the status quo then, right? When we think about the status quo, well, we need to rebel against the status quo, right? But these are the times. Remember when he's talking about this was earlier, like we're talking about 70s and 80s stuff. When he talks about Tavistock, that was the 60s. So that's not to say that the parents' generation in the 60s was fully righteous, right? But they did, these people who are trying to build that technocratic system, that those plans were, of course, well in effect back then. At that time, they needed to weaken the status quo. That doesn't mean that everybody there was right. It's just like the reformist thing again, right? Like just because somebody wants you to rebel against your parents doesn't mean your parents are 100% right. All they wanted to do was muddy things up enough, make it chaotic, make it crazy enough that people have no foundation. And when Skrilla makes the kind of music he makes, it's his music is dark on many levels. Like I even think of that it's like just the way it sounds, I don't like it. Like his new stuff, I don't like it. That dude song, it's like you're almost, and it's not even his fault, but the beats, it's like they're intentionally making the drums to hit at the wrong time. It's like this shit is just ugly. Everything about it is just ugly. but I listen to a lot of his other music, and he's one of those people that makes a lot of music, and I actually do like some of his stuff. So I had to kind of change how I felt about that, because I thought it was just trash, and it's not. It's just the kind of music that he's making at the time, and a lot of that has to do with the beats. You know, you want to talk about satanic rap industry? Look at the beat makers, because the beat maker makes the song a lot of the time. It's creating the direction of the song, like Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. Like, why did that blow up? It's because they used the classic West Coast sound that was so almost high pitched and annoying. It was like one of those songs that gets stuck in your head, but it was like the drums. It's very hot, and you know, when Kendrick served that up, I mean, of course it was going to be a hit, and it it flipped the industry over on its head. You know, you want to talk about satanic music industry? People should look at Kendrick first, and nobody would think about that. And definitely look at Kendrick and Drake, because they've programmed the masses much more than a guy like this with even openly satanic things. You know, like I think T-Pain would buy you a drink did way more damage than even like something like KTS Vaughn, Kill to Survive. You know, one of these like demonic songs. The point is, it's not like everything's rigged. It's not like these people you're pointing to, these celebrities, and Jay-Z is sitting there rubbing his hands together to bring in the satanic technocratic system. I think you're better off pointing to the billionaires like Peter Thiel, like Larry Ellison. They're the ones who are actually doing that, because they're going out and they're telling you about what they actually believe. You ask Kendrick Lamar about what he thinks about the world, and it's a lot of it's nothing against Kendrick. I really like him, but it's a lot of these guys, they don't have a sharp, solid worldview that they can articulate, right? They don't know what they believe. They're gonna go around that they want to be with the people, and you see a lot. Actually, it's become a lot more common in amongst black people in America to be closer to these ancient traditions, these African traditions, like Palo Mayombe and Santo. Like Azalea Banks is openly Palo Mayombe, right? I like some of the things she says, because she talks about power, having power, and like the right the right to have guns, and having power with these rituals, and I like this. I like parts of this, right? I remember Deontay Wilder, when he was there leading up to the fight with Tyson Fury, he was talking about ancestral spirits. So, a lot of black men and women in America are leaning into this. I'm not saying that, it's the ultimate, it's the right decision to make as far as your spiritual practice, but I'm just trying to like we're in a time where so much is going on. There's so much nuance to it, and on this level it's not so simple. They've already, what the Committee of 300 tried to do with Tavistock, they've already succeeded. They have made things chaotic, and nobody knows about foundations and moral principles. So do I think somebody's given Skrilla orders? Do I think somebody even created the 6-7 thing in the lab to brainwash the people with this, and brainwash the person to take out Charlie Kirk when they did? Not necessarily, because this technocratic antichrist system is so far advanced that we're doing the work for them. We're doing the work for these people. The things we think of, the things we spend our time doing. Like we're generating satanic rituals all the time. Every time you log into social media, damn near, So you look at the Super Bowl halftime show. It's like, no wonder. Of course, there's going to be dark occult choreography there as well. But at this point, who knows why it's happening? We just got to go back to the foundations and moral principles to take this world back. Because it's our world. It's not these people that are building this fake alien system. Like we have music, we have art, we have science. Like these are this is reserved for the people who are actually living, who want to be free, who want to do well, and they want to see other people do well. The enemies we're up against building this technocratic anti-Christ system, they're not like that. They not like us. And that's and I'll end with that. So thanks very much. That was This Week in Tyranny, and I'll see you again next week.